Mark Rutte has been a long-time cheerleader for Ukraine's path to NATO. Since taking the helm of the alliance in 2024, he's repeatedly called Ukraine's membership irreversible, a stance cemented at last year's Washington summit. But yesterday in Warsaw, it finally looks like NATO's conceding to Russian demands. Rutte made it crystal clear: Ukraine joining the alliance isn't part of any peace deal on the table, a win for Moscow, which has long insisted on keeping Kyiv out of NATO.
I always also point out that we never said that Ukraine would become a member of the alliance as part of a peace deal. And what the Americans have said, that they have taken the view that as part of a peace deal, Ukraine should not become member of NATO, being subject to a peace deal. But that's of course separate from what will happen in the future.
Rutte's walking a tightrope here. On one hand, he's nodding to NATO's long-term promise. Ukraine's irreversible path to membership stays alive in theory. On the other, he's aligning with the US, led by President Trump, who's pushing a ceasefire that sidelines NATO expansion for now. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov weighed in on Ukraine's NATO membership. He criticized the European Union, led by Germany and Ursula von der Leyen, for prioritizing military buildup despite economic struggles. Lavrov accused the West of fueling the Ukraine conflict while ignoring Russia's security concerns.
Here are Napoleon and Hitler. The goals were the same. And to achieve these goals, well, Napoleon and Hitler conquered all of Europe, and in this case all of Europe was mobilized. And how Europe now, led by Germany, is starting with Ursula and von der Leyen to seriously consider the issue of remilitarization for fabulous hundreds of billions of euros in a situation where they are in dire straits in the economy, in the social sphere, when as a result of the fact that the Biden administration let them off the hook and sent them to fight with the Russian Federation, they have deindustrialization, a huge number of problems.
Lavrov argued that Europe's insistence on arming Ukraine and pushing for NATO membership directly contradicts Trump's position. He claimed Biden's refusal to negotiate with Russia escalated tensions, ignoring Moscow's warnings about NATO expansion.
But perhaps this partly explains why they so ardently demand not to give up Ukraine, demand to arm Ukraine, demand not to even mention that Ukraine should not join NATO and the European Union. Macron recently spoke on this topic. That is, they directly contradict the Trump administration, which through the mouth of the president himself, through the mouth of Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, and through the mouth of Mike Walls, the advisor on NASB, clearly said that preliminary discussions are currently underway on the parameters of the final regulation. Trump clearly said that NATO should be forgotten, and there was no point in even stirring up this topic. But Biden made a colossal mistake and refused to listen to the Russian Federation, insisting that Ukraine will be NATO, thereby creating unacceptable threats to us.
Russia's demanded ironclad guarantees against Ukraine joining, and Rutte's words suggest NATO's bending to that pressure, at least in the short term. He's quick to highlight ongoing support, logistical hubs in Poland, a new joint training center, and lessons from the war. But the big prize, membership, is off the peace talks table. Critics say this undercuts Ukraine's leverage, leaving Kyiv exposed as Trump brokers a deal with Putin. Supporters argue it's pragmatic, prioritizing peace over promises. For years, Rutte's rallied for Ukraine in NATO. Now he's signaling a pivot. Peace first, membership later if ever. It's a bitter pill for Kyiv and a quiet victory for Moscow's red line.